Prescribing of infusions is a little bit different. So when you've gone to add drug and you get your treatment search up, make sure that you're on the infusion tab and then start typing in the medication. And you'll see, as well as amoxicillin, my medication, you'll see it says in 100 mils of saline sodium chloride 0.9% infusion. And you'll see listed under the ingredients, there's 2 items. That's because when you prescribe an infusion, you're prescribing the bag that it's going in as well as the active ingredients. So just as you would on a paper chart. So if I want to prescribe this, I would click on it. And you'll see the linear approach is still there, so you've still got your drug notes, your formulary, your drug conflicts. But you'll see there's a new tab here called Ingredients, and that will list any ingredient that needs to go in to make this infusion. So with some of these infusions, you'll find that the dose is already there. If it's a fixed dose like metronidazole, the dose will be there. But for something like amoxicillin, where the dose could be 500 milligrams, it could be a gram, it's left that you have to input the dose that you want. So I'm going to say 500 milligrams, and you see that is equivalent to 1 vial, and that's allowed the red thing to go, and now we're good to prescribe. Go to order entry, and you'll see a little bit more information here than on a normal prescription. You'll see that there's the dose rate, the volume rate, and the infusion time. Now, there's a default setting for most of these infusions, which is based on the summary of product characteristics of the medication or any other reference source. So you might find a standard infusion time in here, but of course you can change it. Just if you're going to change it, make sure that you're changing the infusion time to a safe amount of time, because there are some medicines where obviously you can't administer it too quickly because it'd be dangerous. So the default setting for this one is 1 hour, which is the equivalent of 100 mils an hour because it's 100 mils. And then you've got the frequency. Now with the frequency, if you see a 6 in front, it just means it's going to be starting at 6 o'clock in the morning. And that's because traditionally in this organisation, IV medication is administered by the night staff on the 6 a.m. drug round rather than the 8 a.m. drug round. So any IV medicine, ideally you'd want the frequency to be at 6 in the morning. So you'll see that there's a 6 QD for 4 times a day, 6 TD, 6 BD, and there's a 6 a.m. So just bear that in mind, whichever IV medicine you're prescribing, preferably to have a 6 in front to allow the nursing staff to do that. Similarly to normal prescribing, you've got your start date and time, and it will tell you that at the moment it's 8 in the morning, and so my first dose isn't going to be until 1 p.m. for this medication, so I could consider doing an associated stat dose as well. And scrolling down here, you've got your stop date and time, which will allow you to say how long your course is going to be, and of course we would absolutely recommend that for some medications such as antibiotics. When I'm ready, I can click confirmation, and you can see there's my intermittent infusion prescribed. I can see that it's 500 milligrams in 100 mils of sodium chloride 0.9% infusion. It's going to be administered over an hour, and that's therefore the rate, and it's 3 times a day, and I can see that my first dose is due at 1 p.m. I can press confirm, and I've prescribed it. Another type of infusion that you might need to prescribe is a continuous infusion, which is a little bit more complex. So I'm going to search for GTN. So there we go, there's our GTN infusion. It tells you it's a continuous IV infusion. And if I click on that to prescribe it, in the ingredients tab for this particular infusion, as it's a vial that's already made up, we don't need to have an infusion bag as well, so that's why there's only the one line on the ingredients. When you go to order entry, you'll see that at the moment the dose rate, the volume rate, the infusion time is blank, and that's because for these continuous infusions you might want to decide what your starting rate is and what the minimum and maximum dose is. So you'll see here minimum and maximum rates. If you click on that, you then can say, right, I want to start at say 1.5 mils an hour. And then the minimum rate that can be administered is 0.6, and the maximum, I don't know, I'm just going to say 24 mils an hour. So that is going to allow, it will instruct the nurses to administer 1.5 mils an hour to begin with, but it will allow the nurses to titrate the dose to the patient's symptoms, going as low as 0.6 mils an hour and as high as 24 mils an hour. So I can prescribe that. There is a functionality for variable rates as well. So it could be that this medication, I need to start off at a low dose, and then after X number of minutes, I can then say, okay, I'll start off at 1.5 and then increase after 60 minutes to 2 and then to 3 mils an hour, and so on and so forth. So there's a different way of prescribing it here, which I'm not going to choose in this instance. When I'm happy with what I've prescribed, I can then go to the confirmation tab, check that what I had intended is on here. So I've got the GTN 50 milligrams and 50 mils. I am going to be prescribing 1.5 mils an hour to begin with, and I have got my minimum rate and my maximum rate stated on here. And as it's a continuous infusion, that's why at the moment it's saying 33.33 hours, but hopefully a prescriber would have reviewed the patient by then. I can press confirm, and that prescribes it. I would say if you're making any changes to the prescription, to really double check what you're changing, and it might be safer if you're going to amend the prescription to actually discontinue and start again, because I wouldn't want you to get confused about what you're prescribing and then there being an error later on down the line. So just bear that in mind.